What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are ready and excited to talk about some fifth year option numbers. Now, full disclosure, cards on the table. I was traveling last week and I went to Waco with my family, saw the in-laws. They got to see my son. It was so much fun. We had a great time. We went to the zoo, the Dr. Pepper Museum. I got to eat at George's. It was wonderful. By the way, I forgot that we discovered this. Let's do it again. Yeah. All right. Well done. Thanks so much for checking out the latest video here on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. By the way, make sure you do subscribe, like the video, turn on the notifications. All that stuff is very, very much appreciated. Now, I mentioned that we were going to be talking some fifth year option values, something that happened while I was traveling, but we still did get some articles up on the website about this subject because we're always working for you here at Blog of the Boys 24/7, 365. The NFL released the salary cap number for 2024, 255 million, a little bit over that. A lot of money for them to play with, a lot of pie to divvy up certain slices, obviously, to use Stephen Jones parlance. But beyond that, fifth year option numbers for the class of 2021 were revealed. Now, I know there are a lot of you who are super hardcore, diehard fans that know each and every single tiny little thing about the NFL and about the Dallas Cowboys. But if you do not know how this works, this is the general 101, the kind of 30,000 foot perspective. All NFL draft picks, players who were selected in the draft, have contracts that are 4 years long. Okay. You are eligible to negotiate an extension after 3 years of service. So anybody who has now fulfilled and completed 3 years of drafted time in the NFL is eligible for a contract extension. Micah Parsons, as an example, who we're about to talk about, is a first round draft pick from 2021. That's 21, 22, and 23. That's why he is now, for the first time in his career, eligible for an extension with the Dallas Cowboys. He does technically have 1 year remaining on that rookie contract because, like I told you, they're 4 years long. However, Micah Parsons is a first-round draft pick. First-round draft picks in today's day and age, because of now a couple of collective bargaining agreements, first-round draft picks have a fifth-year option that when a player is entering their fourth season in the NFL, like Micah Parsons is 21, 22, 23, now entering 2024, their teams get to decide if they want to pick up a fifth-year option. Now, the first 4 years of wages in a player's NFL career are relatively cheap relative to, the average paid position, or the average players pay, the average players who are paid at that position. It's a bit of a tongue twister. But the fifth year, if a team does pick up that fifth year option, it is much more on par with kind of the average salary for that respective position. It is also fully guaranteed and becomes fully guaranteed when a team exercises it. So with Micah Parsons, I know it's weird that I'm not doing these in order. With Micah Parsons now having completed 3 seasons in the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys have to decide, now entering his fourth year, if they want to pick up his fifth year option, which they do. And they have to figure out if they're going to give him an extension, which they, in all likelihood, will do at some point. But as you can see, they have not just this fourth season of his initial rookie contract, but they will have, whenever they do decide to pick it up, that fifth year option. I mentioned that these option values are much more expensive than their initial rookie contracts for the first 3 years, or 4 years, of their rookie deal. As you can see, this is my article on this subject. It was revealed that Micah Parsons, who was the 12th pick in the 2021 NFL draft, the Cowboys initially had the 10th overall pick in that draft, but they traded back with the Philadelphia Eagles of all teams. The Eagles jumped up. They actually leapfrogged the Giants at 11. Eagles took Devontae Smith at 10. The Giants then traded out because they wanted Devontae. The Chicago Bears came up and took Justin Fields at 11. And then Dallas took Micah Parsons there at 12. But $24.007 million for Micah Parsons in 2025. That would be the fifth year option. But we're not here to discuss Micah Parsons quite yet. We're actually here to discuss something else, something that I think kind of flew under the radar. We had a podcast that went out about this on our feed on Monday. It was a segment from my radio show, The Morning Huddle, on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. That being said, let's put it up on your screen here. We're talking about the first-round draft picks in 2021, which also includes Trey Lance. That's right. Trey Lance was the 3rd overall draft pick in the 2021 NFL draft. And while the San Francisco 49ers originally, or were the original team who selected him, as he was traded for by the Dallas Cowboys, it is the Cowboys who own his contractual rights. And therefore, it is the Cowboys who must decide whether or not they want to pick up his fifth-year option. Now, there are some escalators involved with options as to whether or not players make Pro Bowls and things like that. And Micah obviously fulfills those requirements, but Trey doesn't. So Trey's option is pretty standard. This value, by the way, has been able to be projected and approximated for some time, but it is now official. Trey Lance, the third overall pick in 2021, as you can see on the Cowboys via trade from the 49ers, his fifth-year option is $22.408 million. Okay, all that said, all that understood, great. This is a conversation worth having for a very specific reason. At some point in time, it is highly likely that Dak Prescott is going to become the highest paid player in the history of the NFL. It's probably going to make somewhere around $60 million per year. All right, that is highly likely. It's not a certainty, it's not an inevitability, but it feels extraordinarily likely given the context of the entire situation. If we live in that hypothetical for a moment, one thing that is inevitable, one thing that is a certainty, is that there are going to be so many people pissed off about it. Okay, there are going to be so many people who are angry and irate and do not understand, and Dak sucks and blah, blah. We're not here to talk about Dak and the contract. We had a video on that subject here in the feed. You can go back again. Make sure you subscribe to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel, like the video, turn on the notifications, all that good stuff that really does help us out. For those of you who are always curious how you can help, subscribe. Tell people to subscribe, like the video. Those things really go a long way. So why are we talking about Dak relative to Trey Lance? Okay, let's use this hand once again to represent Trey Lance's career now as he is a member of the Dallas Cowboys. I'll go in chronological order. 2021, he was obviously a member of the 49ers. Same for 2022. 2023, he was traded for and was a member of the Dallas Cowboys. So now he's completed 3 years of service in the NFL, right? The Cowboys have to decide entering this offseason, just like with Micah Parsons, whether or not they want to pick up his fifth-year option, which is this obviously fifth year. And like we talked about, the moment that they decide it in the here and now, entering the fourth year, it becomes fully guaranteed. Now, this is a number, a value, an amount of money for the fifth year, not for the fourth year. This year, Trey Lance is on the books for pennies relative to obviously everything because of the rookie wage scale. But the Cowboys have to decide in the here and now whether or not they want to guarantee Trey Lance the number that you see on your screen, $22.408 million for 2025. I bring all this up because it is our job, we believe it is our job, to educate you, to cover all bases, to look under the bases, to look under the rocks, to make sure you understand all of the stories and to not just hear something we say and believe it to be gospel. There are a lot of people who say things that are silly along the lines of, just let Dak play out the contract and move on to Trey Lance in the future. They cannot, because the Cowboys have to decide now, once again, now, entering Trey Lance's fourth year, if they want to commit 22.5, rounding up a little bit here, $1 million to him next year. That's an extraordinary amount of money to pay, to your backup quarterback, a backup quarterback who you really haven't even seen, right? Because the Cowboys traded for Trey Lance. It's a really difficult sentence to say. The Cowboys traded for Trey Lance at the very, very end of the preseason last year. So they didn't even get to see him in the preseason. This offseason, he'll get to work, obviously, OTAs and things like that, and that'll be cool. And this offseason, they'll also obviously get to have him go through training camp. I say offseason, but he'll get to go through training camp with the preseason, and that'll be cool. And the Cowboys will, in all likelihood, move on from Cooper Rush, and that will make Trey Lance the verifiable QB2 backup quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. But they just cannot, it would not be wise in any sense, let alone in such a serious one that you have to devote 22.5 fully guaranteed, $1 million to him. It would not be wise for the Cowboys to commit themselves to Trey Lance for anything beyond 2024, which is why the trade was weird to begin with. The timeline never lined up with where they're at with Dak Prescott. We've talked about Dak a million times and how he is entering the final year of his current contract. So now you could potentially, if you do play things out with Dak Prescott, if you ride things out is maybe the best way to say it. If you were to ride things out with Dak and let him play out the final year of his contract, and you did not pick up the fifth-year option for Trey Lance, now you have both quarterbacks who are slated to hit free agency next year. And if you did want to keep Trey Lance for whatever reason, you wouldn't have his option because you didn't pick it up because you're smart in 2024. You would have to franchise tag him, and that value would be something like $50 million by that point in time. So this whole thing costed the Cowboys a fourth-round draft pick, so far accomplished really nothing, and has led to nothing but questions and skepticism about the overall situation. And I I did not like the trade at first. If you go back and look at my tweets, and I will be honest with you and tell you the reason that I did not like the trade was because I was annoyed at all of the conversation that was going to follow relative to Dak Prescott. But the other reason I didn't like the trade had to do with this whole subject that we're talking about right here, but for one reason specifically. When teams make trades like this, sometimes they then reflip the player for something else, right? They trade, I don't know, a sixth-round draft pick for a player, and then turn around and trade that player in the future for a fifth-round draft pick or for a sixth-round draft pick, right? They recoup their initial investment, and at the very least, they got to look at something. They didn't like it. They got out. They broke even. No harm, no foul. The Cowboys gave up a fourth-round draft pick for Trey Lance, and I'm not going to sit here and act like that is an overwhelming investment, but it is significant, and it will feel really significant when we have to wait for the Cowboys to be back on the clock again this year. But that being said, they're not even in a position where they're going to be able to recoup any kind of investment because the Cowboys are going to decline Trey Lance's fifth-year option because it would be absolute lunacy for them to pick it up and exercise it, especially after they do give Dak Prescott an extension, presuming that does happen. So moving on, that means Trey Lance will be entering the final year of his contract. No team out there is going to be willing to trade anything for a quarterback who they know nothing about in Trey Lance, who is entering the final year of his contract, who they have no team control over. This whole situation, I don't want to act was, ridiculously dumb or ridiculously stupid, but really offered no tangible benefit for the Cowboys. And here we stand, not even a year removed from the trade's initial consummation. So this situation was worth discussing, and we wanted to kind of lay out the details of it all for you. Not to say the Cowboys are fools or idiots or anything like that, but if you're wondering what the situation is with Trey and what it's going to mean if and when the team does ultimately decline his fifth-year option, it's for all the reasons that we just laid out, obviously. But to kind of cover all the bases on the subject, since we're here already, back to Micah Parsons, his fifth-year option value, $24 million. He is going to make so much more money than this when he does ultimately hit the open market hit the open market, when he does negotiate his extension with the team. And we talked about this a little while ago. Micah, now obviously having fulfilled 3 years of service in the NFL, is eligible for an extension, obviously with his team. In this case, it is the Dallas Cowboys. And while his option number for 2025 is $24 million, if you look at the highest paid, these are edge rushers. And, if you think the Cowboys aren't considering classifying him as a linebacker, you have not been paying attention. But he'll be evaluated as an edge rusher. These are the highest paid players on an average per year, an AAV, APY basis. Nick Bosa got his brand new deal, obviously, right before last season started. He's making $34 million per year. That's probably where the conversation starts. To be honest with you, even then, TJ Watt making 28, Joey Bosa 27, who's a candidate. I know a lot of people think the Chargers could move on from him this offseason. Myles Garrett, the reigning defensive player of the year, making 25. Montez Sweat, that new deal with the Chicago Bears, 24-5. Rashawn Gary with the Packers, 24. Max Crosby, 23-5. Micah Parsons, in all likelihood, is going to make a significantly larger amount of money on an APY basis than the $24 million option that he has for the 2025 season as a result, obviously, of his initial rookie contract. I hope all of that made sense for you. I hope none of it was confusing, and I hope that you liked it enough to where you're considering subscribing to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. Those subscriptions really go a long way. We're chasing our friends at Arrowhead Pride, SB Nation's home for Kansas City Chiefs content. We just have to beat them. As soon as we pass Arrowhead Pride, we have the most subscribers across the entire SB Nation network. If you love us and you want to support us, once again, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, turning on the notifications. If you like me and what I do, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads at RJ Ochoa, on TikTok at RJ.Ochoa. I mentioned my radio show. You can hear me Monday through Friday from 6 to 10 a.m. Central Standard Time on the Morning Huddle on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star with my co-host, Rob Thompson. That about does it. All right. It's an interesting week. It's the week of the NFL Combine, and for full context, I recorded this on Monday afternoon. So if anything does happen or is happening or has happened by the time you're watching this video, and I think we're going to release it on Tuesday, we might have to reschedule the NFC's mixtape this week, by the way. But the point being, if anything happens, we've got your back, and we'll get a video up, we'll get articles up, we'll get social content up, because that's what we do. 24/7, 365 Dallas Cowboys content is what we do. My name is RJ Ochoa. I love you all. Thanks so much for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.